A palpable tension filled the Senate Judiciary Committee room, every gaze fixed on the witness table. Senator Lindsey Graham, exuding confident ease, leaned back in his leather chair, a faint smile tugging at his lips as he scanned the scene. Opposite him sat Representative Jasmine Crockett, the Texas freshman whose swift rise to Congress had already sent ripples through Washington. No one could have anticipated that in mere seconds a single sharp exchange would erupt, spreading across online platforms and fundamentally shifting the political trajectories of both figures. Graham, certain he was landing a decisive blow to Crockett's credibility, let his slow southern drawl infuse his words with dismissive condescension. He waved off her impassioned presentation on voting rights as mere theatrics. The seasoned senator, secure in decades of entrenched influence, remained blissfully unaware that he was about to face a masterclass in political miscalculation. The hearing had begun as a routine procedural session. The Senate Judiciary Committee was reviewing proposed updates to the Voting Rights Act, and Crockett had been invited to testify as a House Judiciary member. There was no indication that an extraordinary moment was unfolding. The morning proceeded like countless others in Washington, senators shuffling papers, staff whispering quietly, and journalists positioning themselves in the press gallery, with C-SPAN cameras recording everything with their usual impartiality. Outside the Capitol, the city pulsed with its daily rhythm, entirely oblivious to the singular exchange that would soon dominate national news and social media. Graham's critical error lay in profoundly underestimating Crockett. He mistook her youth for inexperience, her passion for volatility, and her freshman status for political naivety. Each of these assumptions would soon be spectacularly and devastatingly disproven. Crockett, in contrast, had spent years preparing herself for high-pressure confrontations. Her distinguished career as a civil rights attorney had sharpened her ability to withstand hostile questioning from judges and opposing counsel determined to intimidate her. Preparation, she knew, was her most formidable defense. She arrived at this hearing more ready than Graham could have imagined. Senator Graham, a Washington fixture since 2003 after nearly 3 decades in the House, was a master of controlling rooms, shaping narratives, and steering hearings with practiced precision. His famed Southern charm could instantly shift into razor-sharp sarcasm to assert dominance. That morning, Graham was supremely confident, reviewing his talking points and noting Crockett's name on the witness list. He had seen viral clips of her speeches but lazily dismissed them as attention-seeking. His morning had been routine: coffee with senior advisors, quick polling updates, and a brief legislative strategy discussion. The hearing was just another item to check off his calendar. Although his team had provided a thorough briefing book, Graham barely glanced at it, convinced he fully understood how the proceedings would unfold. He had attended hundreds of hearings and assumed this one would be unchallenging. What Graham did not anticipate was that someone had prepared for him. Crockett's team had meticulously compiled and organized his past statements and actions, ready to be deployed strategically against him. He assumed his authority alone would suffice and never expected to be put on the defensive. Graham's career had been built on dominating moments like these, debating presidential candidates, questioning Supreme Court nominees, and confronting formidable political opponents. A freshman representative from Texas seemed far from threatening. Crockett, who entered Congress in 2023, was far from inexperienced. Her prior service in the Texas House had earned her a reputation for relentless advocacy on criminal justice reform and voting rights. As a civil rights lawyer, she had mastered constructing airtight arguments, dismantling opposition, and thinking strategically under immense pressure. At 33, she represented a new generation of black women in Congress, determined not to be silenced. Her viral speeches and strong social media presence had already drawn national attention. Her journey to Congress had been methodical. After law school, she built a legal practice taking on cases others avoided, defending civil rights, and succeeding through meticulous preparation. That same discipline informed her political strategy. In the weeks before the hearing, her team went beyond standard preparation. They prepared her specifically for Graham. They anticipated his tactics, expecting him to try undermining her, treat her as inexperienced, and assumed she would falter. Her team compiled a detailed dossier on Graham, including his political history, voting record, public statements, and patterns of contradiction. Every piece was ready for this confrontation. As tension once again crackled in the chamber, Senator Lindsey Graham leaned back, a confident smile on his face, anticipating another routine hearing. Across from him sat Representative Jasmine Crockett, the Texas freshman whose presence had already drawn considerable attention. What was about to occur would become one of the most talked about political moments of the year. Viral speeches and social media clips were one thing, but facing a Senate veteran like Graham was an entirely different challenge. This hearing had grown beyond voting rights. It had become a symbolic battle in the broader political arena. For Crockett, it was her opportunity to prove she belonged on the national stage. For Graham, it was supposed to be a normal chance to assert authority. Neither, however, anticipated the extraordinary showdown that was about to unfold. After nearly 2 hours of testimony from other witnesses, Crockett's moment arrived. She had observed carefully, taking detailed notes on how Graham interacted with each witness. She noticed his pattern: let the witness speak briefly, then interrupt with pointed questions or dismissive remarks to destabilize them. The previous witness, an elderly civil rights advocate, had been interrupted multiple times, leaving visible frustration. Graham's approach was clear: establish dominance, keep witnesses off balance, and control the narrative. Most people fell for it, but Crockett was ready. She had encountered similar tactics as a civil rights attorney, facing aggressive questioning and intimidation. She had learned to stay composed, wait for the right moment, and respond with precision. When she began her testimony, Crockett spoke clearly and passionately about the urgent need to protect voting rights. She cited real examples from her Texas district, showing how voters faced unnecessary obstacles. She described Maria Gonzalez, a 67-year-old grandmother turned away due to a minor registration issue, and James Washington, a veteran forced to wait hours after his polling place was relocated without notice. These were not abstract issues. They were real people confronting real struggles. Her testimony was thorough, well-researched, and delivered with unwavering conviction. Midway through, Graham's patience waned. He interrupted sharply. "Representative Crockett," he said, his voice dripping with condescension, "I appreciate your passion, but you're making this far more complicated than it needs to be." The room stiffened. Crockett paused, maintaining her composure, eyes fixed forward. Graham pressed on, boasting about his long Senate career and criticizing her understanding of election administration. Some Republican senators nodded approvingly while Democrats shifted uneasily. Social media viewers, sensing the tension, began sharing clips in real time. Crockett remained calm. "Senator Graham," she replied evenly, "I understand the complexities perfectly. I spent years as a civil rights attorney representing clients denied the right to vote. I've studied legislative history extensively." Graham waved her off dismissively. "This is the United States Senate. The real work happens here. Your approach is exactly what's wrong with politics today. All emotion, no substance." That was the moment Graham crossed the line, from tough questioning to outright mockery. He believed he had delivered a crushing blow. Democratic senators looked frustrated but hesitant, while Republican senators smirked. The committee chairman glanced at the clock, hoping to move forward. But Crockett was far from finished. She straightened in her chair, her voice steady but cutting, commanding attention. "Senator Graham," she said, and the room seemed to grow colder. "Fascinating you lecture me about policy and substance when your record over the past several years demonstrates a lack of both." Her words made Graham falter. Senators leaned forward, and social media clips began circulating instantly. Crockett opened her briefcase with deliberate precision. "Since we're discussing how things work," she continued, "let me remind you of your own record." She cut him off sharply, her tone precise and unyielding. "You interrupted me multiple times during my testimony. I am entitled to respond to your characterization of my work unless you want to explain to the American people why you can dish it out but can't take it." The committee chairman shifted uneasily but remained silent. Graham leaned back, his confidence visibly waning as it became clear he no longer controlled the room. Crockett's voice grew stronger. "You mentioned your long tenure, nearly 30 years in Congress. During that time, you've reversed positions on nearly every major issue depending on political winds. Let me remind you of the facts." She opened her folder with careful precision, the blue cover standing out against polished wood. Every senator recognized what was happening. Crockett was about to methodically dismantle Graham's credibility. She read each contradiction with surgical precision. "In 2016, you called Donald Trump a race-baiting xenophobic religious bigot. You said nominating him would destroy the Republican Party, and you'd deserve it if it happened. Those are your words, Senator. I have the transcripts if you want me to read them." Several senators shifted uncomfortably. Reporters typed frantically in the press gallery. Social media clips were already trending before her points had fully landed. Crockett continued. Once he became president, however, you became one of his most loyal defenders. You praised him, played golf, and defended every action, completely contradicting your prior statements. So when you lecture me on substance and policy, understand this: I stand by the positions I advocate. I don't change my principles for political convenience. Some Democratic senators tried not to smile. Even a few Republicans appeared unsettled. Online hashtags exploded within minutes. Let's talk about voting rights, Crockett pressed. In 2006, you voted to reauthorize the Voting Rights Act, calling it essential to democracy. After the Supreme Court weakened it in 2013, you refused to support restoration efforts. When states began passing restrictive laws disproportionately affecting black and brown voters, you remained silent. When I highlighted these issues in my testimony, you dismissed them as emotion over substance. Leaning forward, Crockett fixed Graham with unwavering focus. Here's what I understand, Senator. You've been in Washington so long you've forgotten what it means to stand for something. You're so comfortable with power that you think you can dismiss anyone who challenges you. And most importantly, you underestimated me. Silence fell across the room, total and suffocating. Graham opened his mouth, but no words came. His colleagues avoided eye contact. The moment had completely slipped from his control. Finally, Graham attempted a response, his voice weaker. Representative Crockett, I think you're being emotional, passionate, not understanding how things work. Crockett's voice cut like a knife. Or am I being exactly what you cannot handle? A black woman prepared with facts and receipts, refusing to tolerate condescension. The room reacted instantly, murmurs, nods from Democrats, shocked looks from some Republicans. Reporters typed furiously as cameras captured every reaction. Graham tried once more to regain control. I think we should move on to the next. Crockett's voice remained calm, almost gentle. We can move on when you're ready. But hear me clearly, when you try to diminish me, dismiss my work, mock my passion for justice, you're attacking more than just me. You're attacking every young person who believes politics can be better, every person of color told they don't belong, every woman spoken over by men who think their experience outweighs her expertise. She gathered her papers with deliberate care. The room remained silent, the moment etched into history. I came here to testify about voting rights because every American deserves their voice to be heard in our democracy. You tried to silence mine. You failed. And that, Senator Graham, is what I understand about how things work. She leaned back in her chair. Graham didn't respond. The committee chairman quickly called a recess. Graham left without making eye contact, his confidence visibly shaken. Within minutes, the exchange exploded online. The clip of Crockett confronting Graham went viral across all social media platforms. Hashtags began trending worldwide on Twitter. TikTok videos racked up millions of views within hours. Mainstream media picked up the story before the hearing even reconvened. In the hallways of Capitol Hill, staffers huddled around phones, replaying the moment. Democratic aides shared the clip excitedly while Republican staffers were subdued, some defending Graham, others quietly acknowledging he had walked straight into a trap. Back in her office, Crockett's team was overwhelmed by notifications. Her phone flooded with congratulatory messages, social media mentions skyrocketed, and campaign contribution alerts poured in. The moment resonated far beyond voting rights. The hashtag Crockett destroys Graham became #1 on Twitter for the entire afternoon and evening. Within the first 24 hours, the clip reached over 50 million views across platforms, with over 5 million impressions on Twitter alone. In the first hour, political commentators from every perspective discussed it non-stop. Experts analyzed her timing, calm delivery, and strategic dismantling of Graham's credibility. Progressive voices celebrated Crockett as a rising star in Congress. One viral tweet read, "This is what we need more of in Congress. People who won't back down, who bring receipts, who refuse to be intimidated by the old guard." Jasmine Crockett just became a superstar. Even some conservative commentators, despite disagreeing with her politics, admitted her performance was remarkable. A Republican strategist tweeted, "You don't have to agree with her policies to recognize that Jasmine Crockett absolutely demolished Lindsey Graham today. He underestimated her and paid the price." Memes quickly circulated comparing Graham's confident smirk before the exchange to his stunned expression afterward. Crockett's measured, precise delivery spread widely. Cable news channels replayed the moment endlessly. CNN brought in analysts to break down her approach. MSNBC praised her composure, and even Fox News acknowledged Graham had been outmaneuvered. The New York Times ran a piece titled, "How a Freshman Representative Schooled a Senate Veteran," while the Washington Post described it as a generational shift in Democratic politics. Politico analyzed Graham's political pivots, and Crockett's methodical use of them against him. Morning talk shows, panel discussions, and late-night programs all highlighted the confrontation. On Morning Joe, it was discussed for nearly 20 minutes. The View brought in political experts to analyze the significance, and late-night comedians incorporated it into monologues, with Stephen Core joking that Graham got read like a bedtime story. For the first 24 hours, Lindsey Graham remained publicly silent. His social media accounts were unusually quiet. A brief statement from his office claimed he stood by his questions and found the hearing productive, but few believed it. Republican colleagues remained silent, or quietly admitted he had miscalculated. Some younger staffers confided to reporters that moments like this were precisely why the party struggled to connect with younger voters. 3 days later, Graham addressed the exchange during a Fox News interview. He carefully stated, "I think Representative Crockett is a talented person. We had a spirited exchange, which is what hearings are for. I don't think either of us said anything we regret." Yet his body language told another story. The confident swagger that defined him during the hearing was gone, replaced by visible discomfort. For Jasmine Crockett, that hearing became a career-defining moment. Her social media exploded almost overnight, gaining over 2 million followers in just a week. Donations poured in from small-dollar contributors nationwide, and progressive organizations reached out to collaborate on initiatives. But Crockett was careful not to let the viral moment overshadow her work. In interviews, she repeatedly refocused attention on voting rights. "I didn't go viral to get attention," she told one reporter. "I went to fight for my constituents and Americans facing obstacles at the polls. If my response gets attention, that's fine. But the real story is about protecting democracy." Her colleagues in the House quickly took notice. Democratic leadership began inviting her to higher-profile committee assignments. She appeared on Sunday morning shows, showcasing the same expertise and policy knowledge that had impressed everyone during the Graham exchange. Slowly, she became more than a viral sensation. She emerged as a serious political force. The exchange also sparked a broader conversation about generational change in American politics. Political scientists and commentators noted how a younger, more diverse Congress was challenging traditional authority, refusing to defer to seniority alone, and using social media strategically in political battles. Veteran politicians adjusted their strategies, realizing they couldn't underestimate younger lawmakers. While some dismissed the moment as isolated, the confrontation highlighted the importance of preparation, strategy, and authenticity. Crockett didn't win the exchange through rehearsed one-liners or media-ready soundbites. She won because she knew the issues, researched Graham's record thoroughly, and refused to accept condescension as the price for entry into political debates. Months later, her exchange with Graham continued to be studied. Political communication professors used it as a case study. Young aspiring politicians cited it as inspiration. Democratic candidates referenced her example in competitive races to show the value of standing firm against powerful opponents. For Graham, the confrontation became a cautionary note in his long career. Articles and profiles mentioned the incident as a marker of shifting political landscapes and how underestimating prepared newcomers could backfire profoundly.